Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS preview for the 2021 PGA Championship. Now, before we actually get into the video, I want to remind you guys there are timestamps in the description below. Those timestamps can also be found on YouTube's progress bar. So if you're on desktop, all you have to do is hover your mouse over that progress bar. You'll see timestamps that way. On mobile, you're going to find that knob on the progress bar, and you're going to have to slide it up and down in order to see the timestamps. But they are there, and they're at your disposal. Highly recommend using them. A quick overview, what I'll be going over. We're going to be looking at tournament fact sheets. And it's a good way to start because it gives you a lot of the course statistics, looking at how long the golf course is, grass stats, architect, that kind of stuff. From there, we'll go to a weather forecast. Now, I highly recommend, and I suggest this all the time, always look at weather the Wednesday night before just to see if there is an advantage of any tee time split. You know, whether morning afternoon works best or afternoon morning. From there, I'm going to do a course breakdown to see what kind of shot shape is preferred at this golf course, if there is one. And then we'll wrap this video up by looking at the bucket system. If you are new to this channel, welcome. The bucket system is my way of analyzing the top 10 finishers at this tournament dating back to 2013. I look at a bevy of statistics. I look at strokes gained. I look at course history, recent form, last year, last week, and salaries to try to determine, which buckets do we want to anchor around. And golfers will fall into these buckets depending on what their statistics are or their performances are under those statistics. So at SweetSpotDFS, I'm truly trying to find the optimal lineup every single time I create my lineups. And that's because it's your best way to win a GPP. So that's what I try to do here. And hopefully you guys enjoy the process in getting there. Let's go ahead and get into this. Again, we start with the tournament fact sheets. PGA Championship, Ocean Course at Kiawah Island. We're in South Carolina. The big thing you're going to hear about this golf course, other than it being hosting the 2012 PGA Championship where Rory obliterated it, is the yardage. 7,800 yards, the longest that the PGA Tour has ever used for a tournament. Here's the thing. 7,800 yards is not going to be used any of these days. If you think about it, that's the max distance this course can get set up at. And why would you do that? Why would you set it up max distance? Because the other days that you're not using that setup, they're going to be much shorter. They have several different tees, and the PGA is going to want to use or utilize all of those tees. Which means, I guess to me, I think they're going to set it up around 7,600 yards. Still going to be long, still going to be tough. But yeah, let's not get too hasty about the 7,800 yards and whether or not we need to use bombers or you need to have all long hitting golfers. Remember in 2012, Rory obliterated the field. He shot 13 under. The next closest guy was 5 under. But that was his A game. He was just steamrolling everybody then. The other guys inside the top 10 were the likes of like Ian Poulter. I can't think of the other guys, but ball strikers. Guys who didn't really hit it that far off the tee, but were really accurate with their irons. So I do think, and actually what I've been hearing from the PGA Tour radio as well as the Golf Channel is you need to have complete control over your golf ball. Ball strikers are going to excel, but those that can flight their golf ball all different directions, high, low, left, right, that kind of thing, they're going to be the ideal fit at this golf course. So we don't, let's not get too worried about distance and whether or not we need bombers in our lineups or not. So put that to rest. Moving on, average green size, 6,000 square feet. That's pretty average. I don't really care about any of this other information. I usually go over the number of holes, waters in play, primarily to say, hey, if you have a way to figure out those that can avoid penalties, it's a good way to weigh one golfer over another. But I don't have that data, therefore I'm not going to cover it. But just so you know, there's 6 holes where water is in play. That's not nearly enough for me to really worry about. You can see some of the other information here, not a big deal. What I usually like to really cover is turf grass. Now, I've heard so many different things and I've read so many different things about this Seashore Paspalum. The last time I talked about Paspalum, I can't actually remember which golf course was or which tournament was it. We had Mayakoba where there was Paspalum. Corrales Punta Cana, we also had it there. Puerto Rico Open, there's another one. I thought we had one not too long ago that had Paspalum. Maybe not. Yeah, I can't think of where it was. But the last time that I had heard about Paspalum was it is very similar to Bermuda grass. A lot of people say, not a lot of people, I only heard a couple people talk about how this is a grainless grass where grain won't affect it. Whereas Bermuda does affect the type of shot because of its grain. I'm not an expert when it comes to Paspalum. I've never played on it personally, so I can't really tell you. But the one thing that I heard was what was really interesting was how putting was going to be open to everybody. That I don't agree with. A part of me does, but you have to remember there are 4 types of putters out there. You have golfers who can read greens well and have great technique. Then you have, kind of a flip of those where you have good technique, bad reading, or good reading, bad technique. And then you have golfers who are bad at reading and bad at technique. And really those 3 that I listed at the end, those are going to be your streaky putters. Maybe guys read Paspalum better than they read, say, bent grass or Bermuda grass. We don't know. There's not enough data for this Paspalum. But that's going to play an effect here. And those Paspalum tournaments that we did see are usually alternate events. And this is a PGA Championship. I can tell you that the strength of field is I think it's the highest strength of field I have seen on tour within this last full year. Not this last season, not this last calendar year, but a full year. So dating back to this time last year. Well, I guess that would have been COVID, the suspension of COVID. But even if, we could even go back further than that, the beginning of the calendar year a year ago. So we won't have the same strength of field at this tournament that we did at those alternate events. Those alternate events are going to be extremely weak. None of those I think Thomas Peters is over here, so is Thomas Detry. There are some guys, but it's not worth the headache to try to research Paspalum, because I can guarantee you a Dustin Johnson hasn't really been playing much Paspalum. Neither has a Justin Thomas or Rory McIlroy. None of those guys. So let's put that also to rest. We don't need to really worry about Paspalum. The one thing I do want to talk about is the fact that it's a Pete Dye golf course. That's a big thing to me, because Pete Dye creates golf courses unlike anybody else, where he puts a lot of sight lines and weird obstacles in your way, mostly to do with your sight. And that's the big thing. So we will look, my grass stats, I don't have Paspalum. So when we actually do go over it, we're going to be looking at Pete Dye stats. That's going to be my grass stats when we do talk about it. So that's going to conclude the tournament fact sheets. You can read what's here. I'm not going to. It's not really the biggest thing. You can see some interesting information. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to a tournament, or a weather forecast. This is the 10-day weather for the Kiawah Island, South Carolina. The big thing that we want to cover is Thursday and Friday wind, because that's where the cut is going to be made. What we want to figure out is will there be higher wind one day over the other? Well, on Thursday, we have winds east at 10 to 15 miles per hour. And on Friday, we have winds east-northeast from 10 to 15. So pretty much very, very similar. Therefore, we aren't going to have a benefit of stacking one tee time split over another, at least not right now. Again, I recommend looking at weather on Wednesday night to try to determine if there is any advantage of one split over the other. The last 2 weeks there have been. The PM AM splits have been way more advantageous than the AM PM splits. And that's because there was more of a Friday wind in the afternoon. So definitely look at that. This course is also set up interestingly. Let's see if I'm going to pull up, I'm just going to do a little snippet of, let's say this golf course. The front nine goes out like this. So holes 1 through 9 just go in one direction, and then holes 10 through 18 come in another direction. So if the wind is blowing, let's say the wind is, blowing this way, then holes 1 through 9 are going to be downwind, but holes 10 through 18 are going to be into the wind. There's a caveat to this. Aaron Oberhoser, I think that's how you say his name, and Nota Begay were talking about this. When they were on the golf course, kind of prepping for their time on the course, because they're going to be our guys. I don't know if they work for CBS or whatever, but they'll be giving us that information on the course. They'll be following groups, talking about it and everything like that. As they were prepping, they're walking down holes 1 through 9, and it started out in one direction on hole 1. And as they were about to make the turn, going 10 to 18, the wind had flipped. So they never said if there was downwind or into the wind, but let's say it was downwind. If he went all the way down and the wind started shifting, obviously holes 1 through whatever are going to be downwind, and then they're going to start shifting either left to right or right to left, whatever. And then once they got around 10, that shift was still happening, and then they were going to be downwind once again. Now, if you think about it, if you're on the wrong side of that, you're going to be into the wind all 18 holes. It's going to be even more of a detriment than if you were downwind the entire time. So it might be worth stacking tee times just for the principle of it, if something like that happens. And they say there's no prevailing wind here, meaning, there isn't a direction where the wind usually comes in at. It swirls, as they say, and it can come at any direction at any point of the day at any time. So the strategies are, abundant. You can deploy any strategy you want, whether you do want to do tee time splits, if you don't, it's up to you. But I do think this is actually a smart time to actually split up your lineups into percentages and say 30% just do as is normal, 30% stack most PM AM. Because let's be frank here. We are going to see both tee time inside the top 10. It just happens every single year, every single tournament. Doesn't matter if there is a high wind on one day over another. If one tee time split gets hosed while the other one doesn't, we're still going to see AM and PM guys inside the top 10. So we can't, don't go full 6 of 6 of your golfers on one side or the other. Just don't do that. It just doesn't make sense. You're never going to win a GPP that way. Oh, I shouldn't say that. You're more likely, you're never going to hit the optimal lineup that way. Okay, so that's all I have for weather. Let's go ahead and get into a course breakdown. Now, I don't really talk about each hole. You can go ahead and read what I have written. I'll, pause the video. I'll go slow. You can go 1 through 9 right now, and then 10 through 18. What I typically do, though, is I talk about this summary that we have right here. So I have, as I see it, no holes where a draw is required off the tee. Now, most of this golf course is a link style golf course where there are very little trees, there are more rolling hills, and obviously this course is affected by wind. There are no trees, there are no dog legs, there are no real danger or threat that is going to dictate what type of shot shape you need to hit off of the tee. So I do have one fade, but I have 0 draws. When it comes to approach, things are a little different. If you look at this, look at how many different holes are colored with different, well, blues are fades, reds are draws. You can see it's lit up different colors quite a bit, but kind of the predominant shot shape that's required is a fade. And most of the reason why is either there was water or some kind of trouble lurking on the right. And the reason why you'd want to hit a fade into that kind of thing is you want to shape shots into trouble. Primarily because if pins are placed, tucked into those shoot, how am I trying to say this? If you have trouble on one side or the other, you want to shape shots into it, because if pins are tucked that way, it's the only way of accessing those pins and giving yourself the best scoring opportunities. Now, I could easily just say no shot shape is required at this golf course, period, because if you want to play smart, just play to the big side of the green and hit any type of shot shape into it and just make pars all that you can. But for DraftKings points, we want to score as many points as possible. We want our golfers trying to make every opportunity worthwhile. So that requires certain shot shapes into these greens. These are beneficial shot shapes. They're not necessarily required, but they're preferred. So those that hit fades, and kind of like, this is what I was saying earlier on, those that are in control of their golf ball are going to do well at this golf course. So that requires fades, draws, hitting bullets, stingers, as you will, hoisting the ball up in the air. Those are your golfers that are going to do really well at this tournament. But if there was kind of a consolation, find golfers who fade the golf ball and are good ball strikers. I think that's probably the best way to look at this. At least that's how I'm going to do it. But that is going to conclude the course breakdown. Not very long. Obviously, again, you can read what I have described there. But let's go ahead and get into past results and target score. Now, I don't know what we can expect at this golf tournament. My stats go back to 2013. Obviously, 2012, Kiawah Island hosted the PGA Championship. So we would have seen that. Again, Rory McIlroy had won that 2012 PGA Championship at 12 under, or 13 under, sorry. So you can see in 2013, we have 10 under. 2014 was 16 under. 2015 was 20 under. That was another Pete Dye golf course. Then in 2016, we had 14, 2017, 8, 16, 8, and 13 the other following years. And those are all under par. 8 under, 16 under, 8 under, 13 under. To me, I think we're going to see a target score around 10 to 13 under once again. Actually, let's move it to 11 to 14 under. Somewhere in there, if the weather is perfect, I think these guys can hit 14 under pretty easy. But I think we're going to get around 11 to 14 under, which all that does is it opens it up to everybody. Usually I talk about grinded out golfers versus birdie makers. This is going to open up to everybody. Your golfers that play really good golf regardless are going to do well here, whether they're grinders or they're volatile birdie makers. So in a way, the field is wide open for any of those golfers. Personally, I usually just look at the buckets when it comes to creating any type of lineup. If I did have stats available to me to say, hey, this golfer does well when the score's closer to even, or this golfer does well when the score's closer to 20 under. I would definitely be looking at that. So if you guys have that data available for yourselves, definitely look at it. I think that's a worthwhile stat to look at. But again, it's open to everybody. So let's move on. Next, we're just going to get straight into the buckets. Usually what I have done in the past is all of this information that you're looking at you're looking at on the screen, I would do separately. So you would have something like this. I'd give you a salary breakdown. And it will show you, the popular salaries inside the top 10, the popular salaries inside the top 5, kind of giving you that visual evidence that these salaries matter or something of that kind. What ended up happening? That took too long. So I have the summary built up for this. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the salary buckets, because that's where we start building our lineups from anyways. We look at salaries to see what would make, what would do well. So we're going to look at the best salaries for this tournament, and we're also going to be looking at optimal lineups. I like to look at both just to try to figure out what is the best build for this type of tournament. So what you can see, I have ranks for what salary buckets matter the most. You can see what the stat category range is. So anything 10K and above would fit in this bucket here. Anything 9K would fit in there. 8K, 7K, 6.5 and above, within the 6K range, that is. And then anything below 6.5. So those are my 6 ranges, and I have 6 ranges for each stat category that comprises of buckets. And based off of their frequency, I rank them. So the higher the number you see here, the better the rank. Now, I had thought about changing it from frequency to success rate until I came to this tournament and realized this is a different type of, what would I call it? A situation, I suppose. And I'll get to that when we get to the last week buckets, because usually a WGC event precedes this event. And we have a lot of golfers that play in that event that play in this event and also finish top 20. We had the AT&T Byron Nelson last week. Not a lot of golfers from that field are in this tournament, and not a lot of top 20s, not a lot of top 40s. So it doesn't really work out. So therefore, I think going by frequency is the best way to do this. Anyways, your number one bucket, golfers in the 7K range. We have an 8.1 or 8.81% success rate. And actually, before we get into success rates, here's what I like to look at. Totals for golfers in this field. If their number is higher than the average per year, I kind of look at that a little bit. Like it attracts me more to that bucket. So seeing that this bucket here, salary bucket 3, has 6 golfers in it this year, and on average has 5.4, to me it's like, okay, the likelihood of this finishing inside the top 10 is going to happen. And that's another thing I kind of forgot to tell you. These are your top 10 frequencies. I know I have it set up there, but I didn't say it. And that's what we're looking at here. Well, not bucket totals. Bucket totals is just anyone in the field. So we have 6 this year, 5.4 on average, a 29.63% success rate. Guess what? We're going to see a 10K golfer inside the top 10. I think it would be foolish to start to not start in the 10K range when building your lineups. Based off the success rate, I multiply that into the amount of golfers this year to get my projected score. I think we're going to see in between 1 to 2, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see 3 golfers in the top 10 this year that are 10K and above. You can see we've seen a max of 3 dating back to 2013. Salaries go back to 2017 because that's when DraftKings did contests for golf for the PGA Tour. So we have never seen more than 3. I'm not going to say we're going to, I think that remains. We're not going to see more than 3. 3 is definitely the max that I think will happen, but I do think the likelihood of seeing 2 is pretty high. But what I was going at with all of that is when we look at the 7K range, is this number similar to this? If yes, look at that success rate and then obviously do that projection. I think we're going to see around 3 golfers. Even though this projection is just more of a formula, I feel comfortable with it. We see 7K golfers inside the top 10 pretty frequently. We can see we've seen at least 3 every single year, and we've seen up to 6 in any given tournament or any given PGA championship, that is. So I'm pretty confident we're going to see, at least 3 7K golfers. So make sure you load up on those guys. Your number 2 bucket, golfers in that 6.5 to 6.9 range, basically. That's your next bucket, just based off of frequency. The success rate's not very high. And that's something you guys should be, you should be thinking about. We do have 38 golfers in the field this week that fall in that bucket range. We actually might have a couple more. I don't have price tags for KH Lee and Tom Hoagie. I don't know if they're going to be, but they might be. So we might see this up to 40, but right now we have 38. And on average, we see 46. With a 3.85% success rate, that's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack. That's going to be hard. That projects out to be 1.46. So in between 1 and 2. And I do think we're going to have to build our lineups there. We need to consider 2 7Ks. We're going to need to consider 1 6K golfer. I'm going to be avoiding this below 6.5 bucket. Absolutely 0 top 10 finishes. And we normally see 47.8 per year. Now, this is primarily because the PGA Championship is only for professionals. There are no amateur golfers allowed at this tournament. What the PGA does is, for anybody who is a PGA member, like your golf, your club professionals that like to play, they can qualify for this tournament. 20 golfers from the PGA of America get to play in this. These are your club pros, your teaching pros, that kind of thing. They get to play in this tournament. They are golfers you should just avoid, period. Do not play those golfers. Sorry about that. What a pest. Anyways, you should not play any of those 20 golfers. They have never finished inside the top 10. I shouldn't say never. They rarely finish inside the top 10. So, that's my recommendation. You obviously can do whatever you want, but you can see 0% inside the top 10. Moving on, so we talked about 10K, 7s, and the 2 6s. Interesting to see the 9K range having the lowest frequency. We've seen 0, so it's not a for sure bucket to choose from, but we've seen a max of up to 5. It has a 19.35% success rate of finishing inside the top 10, and we have more golfers in that bucket this week for this tournament than we've seen on average. So I do think we're going to see at least one guy from this 9K range, and then that leaves us with the 8K range, which has a 16.33% success rate, and more golfers in the field this year than we have on average. Again, to me, accounting for a better, I shouldn't say better. That's not the word I'm looking for. It just seems like a lock that we're going to see an 8K golfer inside the top 10. Now let's go ahead and take a look at all of our optimal lineups. In 2017, I didn't actually have a point total to give you the optimal lineup. I was mostly looking at how many of the top 10 golfers we can fit in a lineup and how many of the top guys can we actually fit. So what I had was Justin Thomas, Louis Oosthuizen, Patrick Reed, Francesco Molinari, Matsuyama, and Kisner. I don't need to tell you the names, but we can go by the price tags. We have a 10K golfer, 8-9, 7-5, 7-3, 7, and then 6-8. So no 8K, or I should say no 9K golfer. This all equals up to 48,000. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know I don't like looking at just, this 48,000. It's really difficult to leave $2,000 on the table. You're opening yourself up to a bunch of different combination of lineups. Let's try to get it as close to 50,000 as possible, and I have that highlighted here in blue. So you can see we are replacing Matsuyama and Kisner for Ricky Fowler and Matt Kuchar. So we would have a 10K, 8-9, 8-8, 2 7s, and a 6. That would make up our optimal lineup in 2017, but we could also go a different route, I believe. Or maybe not. Maybe we just keep it there. I was doing something earlier. Yeah, no 9K. So this works. This works. We're not going to go any further than that. In 2018, our optimal lineup was a 9, or 2 9s, I should say. No. 3 9s, a 7, a 7, and a 6K golfer. That's pretty remarkable. And even if we wanted to go further from that, I mean, this is your optimal lineup, and this is your realistic lineup. So 3 9K golfers, 2 7s, and a 6. So you see how that theme of 2 7s and a 6 kind of, is prevalent. I'm thinking we're going to see that looking at all these optimal lineups. 2019's PGA Championship, your optimal lineup, and I believe this is where I was keeping track of points. I don't have it here, but oh man, I guess I don't have the optimal lineup. Is that just... No. Well, this works right here, but I think it was this. There it is. Yeah, 47,900. I don't have them marked, but this would have been your optimal lineup in 2019. Again, I don't have points recorded for this, so it might not be exactly this, but this fits. This is, your top guys inside a lineup, or, your top guys from the leaderboard inside a lineup. That equaled 47,900. Now, the $4 winning GPP lineup, see, I do have points there, 483. Had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 golfers inside the top 10, and then the last guy was in 23rd place. They used all 50,000 of their salary. Now, if we were looking at this a little different, I think we go something like this. We're trying to create a realistic lineup. This equals 49,800. So it'd be a 10, 3 8Ks, a 7, and a 6. So that theme of 2 7s and a 6 kind of ends right here. But that's fine. It's some kind of variation of that. And then when we look at 2020's optimal lineup, we had an 8, a 9, a 7, an 8 once again, and 2 other 7s. So no 6K there. But let's see if we can create a realistic lineup, because that only equaled 48,300. Hard to leave money on the table. So let's do this. 10, 7, 9, 8. Can we go with another 7 here? And then a 6, 9. Nope, that's a little too much. How about we get rid of Finau and put in Matthew Wolff? There we go, 49,800. So we had a 10, a 9, 8, 2 7s, and a 6K golfer. So there it worked out. All six of our golfers were inside the top 10. And this would have beaten the $3 birdie, which was it scored 584.5 points. This would have scored 608 points. So what we just went over, that would have beat it. That was more of your realistic optimal lineup. So yeah, for me, when we look at this salary, the salary buckets, obviously a 10K golfer is just a no-brainer. And then moving on from there, we can feel confident playing a 9K, an 8K, 2 7s, and that 6K, like I said. It all kind of fits in the projections. Our buckets this year are a little more. Some of these lower buckets are a little bit more than we've seen on average years. So I don't know. All the signs to me are pointing in that direction. 10, 9, 8, 2 7s, and a 6. You can see the top 5 frequencies for this and their success rates for these buckets. I'm not going to go over them. To me, it's not really that important. I'm looking for top 10s, and that's about it. But the top 5s kind of give us a little bit. Now that I kind of think about it, top 5s give us a little bit more comfort in selecting some of these buckets. Maybe not with the salary buckets, but anyways, let's move on. The next bucket that I'm going to get into, let's start with the last year bucket. So these are finishing positions from the year prior. And this is stemming all the way back to 2014. So 2014, we would have had our first last year bucket, at least our first year we can actually record data for last year buckets. And our highest frequency bucket are golfers that finish in that 1 to 20 range. So golfers who top 20'd the PGA Championship the year before are your number 1 bucket for last year buckets. Number 2 are golfers who did not play. 3 are those that missed the cut. 4 are between that 20 to 40 range. And then the other ones are sprinkled in between. Now, when it comes to success rates, your best success rate is last year bucket 1, followed by last year bucket 4. Those are your 2 buckets that have the highest success rates. When we look at how many are in this year's field as opposed to average, we're pretty much on par with last year bucket 1s. We're actually over with last year bucket 4s. And let's see, where's another one? Last year bucket 2s are right on par, as are last year bucket 3s. So when we look at these last year buckets, we're going to want to go over those. We're going to want to select those golfers. I didn't actually get into lineups when it came to looking at golfers' salaries, not so much lineups, but looking at golfers. So here's what we have for the 2021 DK, DraftKings, that is, their salary leaderboard. Of your 10K guys, I think it's pretty safe to say one of these guys is going to finish inside the top 10. But we're going to be talking about last year buckets. So let's go ahead, look at our top last year bucket 1 golfers. We have 3 golfers that are inside that 10K range. So right away, we have 2 buckets we want to be looking at: the 10K salary buckets, as well as the last year 1s, which were golfers who top 20'd this tournament last year. I really don't have one way or another. This bucket in itself, the last year bucket, although there are only 19 golfers in it, we have 10 golfers that are 8K and above. And every one of these golfers is worthwhile in playing. So I have no issue, like if we look at their last year performance here, I have no issue with DJ, Rahm, or DeChambeau. Perhaps we should actually start our lineups that way. If we wanted to do 30% one guy, 30% another, 30% another, those 3 might not be terrible plays to go with. However, we could also say the same thing about the guys underneath them. So if we went with a 10K golfer from a different bucket that isn't a last year 1, we could go with a Morikawa or a Schauffele or a Reed or even a Berger or even a Finau or Scheffler. Like, those golfers there are fantastic choices. Also, Paul Casey, I think, is a fantastic choice. But I guess that's really all I would go to. So this is definitely a bucket to play around for sure. And now you see, so if in your head you're trying to choose between certain golfers, definitely start here. That's my recommendation. Start here. When we look at the other buckets, so last year too big of a bucket to even look at. 56 golfers in the field are under that bucket. Too big. That's a volume-driven bucket. 4.1% success rate. Well, when you do the math, you multiply that into 56, you still get 2 projected inside the top 10. That's no surprise to me. Volume-driven, very difficult. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. I use that term a lot, but that is definitely something we can use here. Same kind of applies for our last year bucket 3 golfers. Now we can take a quick look at who our last year bucket 2 golfers are, as well as our last year bucket 3 golfers. We have Will Zalatoris in our last year bucket 2, Sam Burns, Lee Westwood. Those are basically your notable names. We have some good 6K golfers. Stuart Sink. I mean, Chris Kirk is there as well. I mean, all of these guys right here have proven over the recent stretch that they are pretty high quality golfers. Cam Davis is probably going to be popular among some. Thomas Peters, I know a lot of people talk about him. And a bunch of foreigners, a bunch of European golfers that are pretty darn good. So definitely don't sleep on any of those guys. Now, when we look at our last year bucket 3 golfers, Matt Fitzpatrick is here with Sung J M, Tyrrell Hatton, Joaquin Niemann, Mark. I mean, you have a pretty good bevy of golfers right here. I'm not particular to any of them. I certainly don't care that much to select any of these guys. Ricky Fowler's down here at 7,000. Same as Kuchar. You know, if you're telling me you want to play, let's see, what's our number we're looking at? Somewhere between 1 to 2 last year bucket 3 golfers. I mean, I think I'd rather fill in my lineups with these 7K golfers as opposed to try to, you know, fit in an 8K golfer, you know, with one of my other buckets that I'm going to be looking at. So I don't know. But the bucket after this, last year bucket 4, is actually a bucket to choose from because it's your highest success rate. No. It's your second highest success rate. 13.08%. Again, we have more in the field this year than we do on average. 13.08% success rate gives us a 2.2 projected score. So that means 2 golfers we're projecting to finish inside the top 10 from this bucket. When there's only 17 golfers, it makes it a little easier to choose from. However, it is kind of difficult. It's just like our last year bucket 1s. We have quite a bit. We have 8 golfers that are 8K and above. So again, we can start with these 2 golfers at the top, you know, because we do want 10K and above, or we can start with the 9K or 8K golfer. I shouldn't say start, but we can fit those in with one of our other 10K and above golfers. Really, it's up to you guys. I mean, I don't know. It will be interesting in the strategy video tomorrow of how to, you know, build lineups with these golfers. Here's an interesting one. Your worst bucket, last year bucket 6s, have Jordan Spieth. He is a 10K golfer. We do want 10K golfers, and this guy's been playing out of his mind. To me, I think he's a mold breaker. I think he can finish inside the top 10 and bring this bucket, you know, some glory. But if there was a reason that he did play poorly, it's because he's in this bucket. So it's up to you guys whether or not you want to choose it from there or not. Personally, for me, I think this caps his ownership for me. I mean, I do like him. Don't get me wrong. I think he's already evolved back into Golden Boy. I think he's going to finish pretty well. If he doesn't finish top 10, he's going to finish like 11th to 14th place, 11th to 13th place. He's going to be right around the top 10. Of course, he could blow up, but I think he's going to play pretty well at this golf course. That's just my hunch. So we shall see. Let's move on from there. I just wanted to show you that Spieth was a last year bucket 6, which is our worst bucket when it comes to last year buckets. 7.25% success rate. So I don't know. Maybe we play Spieth at 7.25%. I don't know. I'm gonna probably play him a little bit more, but yeah, that bucket in its entirety. You saw there's Bubba Watson and Shane Lowry there as well. They're gonna get bumped down quite a bit, because Spieth is going to garner most of my ownership from those golfers. Okay, our next bucket to go from here, to me, logically, would be the last week bucket. These two kind of work hand in hand with each other. Your number 1 bucket are golfers who finished top 20 the week before. Now, I was talking about this before. If we look at all of the years prior, in 2020, we had the WGC St. Jude. There were only 60 some golfers that could be in that tournament. We end up having, I shouldn't say 60. I think there were 78 golfers that could actually play in that tournament, and 77 of them were in the field for the PGA Championship. You can see that led to a lot of top 20 finishes here up at the top. It's just going to be natural. You have 70 some golfers. A fourth of them are going to finish inside the top 20. So it's kind of a poor reflection of the last week's stat and how well it does. Now, here's one thing that I will argue for, though, is that bucket, the last year one bucket, top 20, the min was 2. That means we've seen at least 2 every single year that have had a top 20 finish the week prior, the week before leading into this tournament. And as we go through this, you're going to see that in 2019, the Byron Nelson was played right before. So you could say 2019 and this year, very similar to each other. So we do have 2 top 20s or two top 20s the week before, finishing inside the top 10 for the PGA Championship of that year. And then we have a 20 to 40, but everyone else, took the week off. So that might be something to think about here. In 2018, we saw 2 tournaments played together, WGC Bridgestone and then the Barracuda Championship. Again, that leads to a lot of top 20s. Your best golfers are playing those WGC events. So something to keep in mind. 2017, same thing. You see the top 20s there. In 2016, however, the Canadian Open was played before, but we had 2 top 20s finish first and second. So 2 top 20s the week before, finishing first and second at that tournament. So again, that form from the week before matters. But yeah, 2015, you can see all the top 20s. 2014, you can see all the top 20s once again. I think 2013 is very similar. Yeah, a bunch of top 20s here in 2013. So that skews that bucket. And I only went through that to show you that that's why this number is so high. But it does have a 22.16% success rate. And again, we've seen at least 2 every single year. To me, I think that's where I'm sticking at with this tournament. We only have 8 in the field when we see on average 20. But again, with the 22% success rate, we can see anywhere between 1 and 2 finish inside the top 10. And I think that is an actual safe bet to make. Your number 2 bucket are golfers who did take that week off prior to. To me, this is a volume-driven bucket, like a no-brainer. We have 118 in the field this week. On average, we see 85, and that includes those WGC events. Well, that makes sense anyways, because not everyone's invited to a WGC event, and not everyone who played in that WGC event is playing in the PGA Championship. Mostly they are. Most of them are. Anyways, this is a very volume-driven bucket, 3.53% success rate. We are projecting 4, so we can think about that. We'll see what golfers fall under that bucket. I mean, we're going to find a lot of good ones because I don't think Rory played last week. I don't think Justin Thomas played last week. They're going to fall under that bucket. So it's going to be like a no-brainer, Last week, bucket 3s were that 20 to 40 range, so golfers who finished in that range. On average, we see 17 and a half. This year, we only see 7. So not good when it comes to that. We are projecting under 1, very close to 1. We have seen a minimum of 1, so at least 1 every single year dating back to 2013. But we'll have to double check on that. Or we'll just have to double check on the type of golfer. We have, the other buckets here, their projected scores pretty low. Your last week 5s, we only have 1 that's in there. I think that's Martin Laird, if I remember off the top of my head. I'm not a big deal to me. But let's go ahead and take a look at who some of these golfers are. So out of our last week 1s, I don't have KH Lee's price tag. But anyways, we only have 8 golfers in the field. Again, it's our highest success rate, but we do typically see more. Again, 20.88. We're projecting 1 to 2. So of those golfers, I mean, we do see Jordan Spieth there. We also see Will Zalatoris, Daniel Berger, Sam Burns. Pretty darn good golfers. I mean, to me, I don't know. All of these golfers, you can make an argument to play. I probably going to stay away from Schwartzel. I don't care for him this week. KH Lee, depending on his price tag, if he's in the 6K range, definitely consider playing him. Probably going to avoid a Harris English, but Burns, Berger, Zalatoris, and Spieth, they seem pretty good. Our last week bucket twos, like I said, Rory, JT, Dustin Johnson, Morikawa, Schauffele, Hovland, Webb, Reed, a bunch of good golfers in this bucket. This one, what did we forecast? 4.16. Yeah, I think we're going to see 4.16. So if it makes you feel comfortable to play someone like a Rory or a JT or even a DJ, here you go. This should provide you a little bit more comfort. A lot of other good golfers. We have Abram Ants. I mean, just look at everyone who is around that 8K and above range. It's a bunch of good golfers. Our last week bucket 3 golfers, a small amount, and we have Rahm. Rahm leads the way with Hideki, our Masters champion, Mark Leishman, Lee Westwood, Carlos Ortiz, Taylor Gooch, and Alex Noren. I don't mind any of these guys either. I think they're all pretty decent plays, and I like Noren and Gooch and Ortiz as my high 6K golfers. Maybe this is where I'm going to choose these guys from. Easy, but again, don't forget about last week bucket 2s. We didn't even go over the 6K range, but there are, quality names down here as well. But yeah, it looks better when you can see less, and of this bucket, what are we projecting? Under 1. So we might not see one from this one finishing inside the top 10. But again, we have seen on average we've seen at least one every single year. So either that streak is going to get broken this tournament, or we're going to continue on with it. And I think the likelihood is we're going to move on with it with the golfers we see here. Okay. I don't think I really care to talk about last week bucket 4s. We do have Bryce in there, Scotty Scheffler. I guess it's worth talking about Ryan Palmer, Sebastian Munoz, and this is that 40 to 60 range. So pretty interesting group, especially with DeChambeau. We're projecting under half of a person, so it's not looking good for this bucket. Not looking good for DeChambeau for just being in this bucket. That's going to cap my ownership on him. I'm not going to be bullish on him this week. I know some people are, but I think I'll avoid him because of that. And we can go ahead and move on from that bucket, which just kind of naturally leads us into our course history bucket, which is tournament history. Now, last week at the AT&T Byron Nelson, it was a new golf course. And the course history buckets, which were tournament history buckets, did not perform very well. And if you're wondering why talk about them for this tournament when the golf courses are always changing, well, I think your field actually stays the same. The higher quality golfer is always going to do well at this golf course. Because it changes so frequently, I'm more comfortable using this bucket as opposed to at the AT&T Byron Nelson. What ended up happening is you had like 5 to 6 years where it was played at one course, and then it flipped 2 years to another course, and then it flipped to another course. I think that kind of, I'm going to call it volatility. That type of volatility for a bucket, probably not the greatest thing, because that was the first time we've actually seen that golf course. This is going to be like our second time seeing this golf course for some of these golfers in the field. I think it's okay to use tournament history buckets. So let's move on. Your number one bucket are golfers that have a tournament history that is average finishing position from 2013 to present day, in between that 20 to 40 range. Your number 2 bucket is in between that 40 to 60 range. And your number 3 bucket's that 1 to 20. Now, this just covers basically your best golfers at this tournament. Every other bucket below it is obviously worse. 60 to 80, 80 plus, did not play isn't, a bad performance. It just means you have not yet played this tournament. And you can see that's our 4th ranked bucket. So it's better to not play this tournament than to play it and either finish in between 60 to 80 or 80 plus, which is usually your miscuts and your withdraws. Now let's go ahead and take a look. Our number 1 bucket has 25 golfers in it this year. Usually it has 19. So we're above that. 19.44% success rate. 4.86 is what we're projecting. Let's take a look. Actually, no. Let's look at the 3 buckets that look good. Tournament history bucket 2, also higher than on average. 8.66% success rate. 3.6 is what we're projecting. So these 2 buckets probably are going to continue on. And you can see we've seen at least 1 from each of those buckets finish inside the top 10. So I think we're going to see the same thing. Our tournament history bucket 3 is that 1 to 20 range. We see 6 this year. On average, we see 8. So it's a little bit lower, but an 18% success rate leads to a projected amount of 1. So that's pretty good. And you may actually see 1 or more for tournament history buckets 4 and 5. I've seen this week in and week out. I think it's okay to go with those buckets. So let's take a look at all of our tournament history buckets. And we'll start with the number 1, which I should actually update this to a T. There we go. So tournament history bucket 1s. Most of our 10K golfers are here. All but 1, I believe. We have 7 in total. No, we have 7 in total. We have 5 here. I'm sorry. So all but 2. Actually, 8K and above, 12 golfers only. That's not terrible, but that is half of the bucket, pretty much. Again, it gives you a good reason to play either Rory, JT, DJ, Rahm, or Spieth. It's going to be fun using the optimizer, trying to figure out, what it wants to do with the rules that I'll put in place. But yeah, I'm really liking these names. I mean, I was liking Rory and JT prior to this, but DJ's popping up a bunch. So is Jon Rahm. Spieth kind of is. He obviously popped up for last week bucket 1s. Now he's a tournament history bucket 1. So his buckets are in his favor despite his last year bucket 6 score. So we shall see. But this bucket, it's a difficult one. There's Sam Burns once again. Cantlay, Simpson, it's a tough one to choose from. I think our tournament history bucket 2 has more golfers in it. And actually we see Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Reed, Cam Smith, Daniel Berger, some pretty good 8K and above golfers. So helping out someone like a Bryson who kind of was showing up in the wrong buckets before. But yeah, this bucket is pretty large. We have Phil, not terrible for a 6K price, honestly. Not a terrible play for 6K, I should say. Ryan Palmer, I like Palmer, as do a lot of people, I'm sure. But that bucket looks pretty difficult. Our 3s, I think we only have 6 in it. Morikawa, Brooks, Scheffler, Day, Lonto, and Robert Streb. Let's see, where are you? So yeah, course history we're looking at. Again, it's tournament history, not course history. So Brooks isn't really on the top of my list. His bucket scores are pretty bad, but Morikawa, Scheffler, Day, Lonto, those seem pretty interesting. So our last year bucket 3s, we're projecting to see one of these guys inside the top 10. One of them. I really don't care about any of these guys. If I'm being honest with you, I think if we are projecting one, what I might do is I'll play 90% of my lineups with a golfer from this bucket, but I might just split up the ownership. I'll split up the ownership based off of who I like the most, but that's going to garner a lot of owner. Like if you think about it, I only have 6 golfers in this bucket. Well, 6 divided by 100 is going to be like 16.6 repeating, I believe. 16% if we split it evenly. So if we do get one out of this bucket, it would, talking about it now would say we should play this bucket 100%. And of that, split up that ownership. Does that lead us on a 40% Morikawa, 40% Scheffler, maybe even 50% Scheffler? Like that would help us out. Try to, fill out our lineups with this bucket. I don't know. We'll double check. Or maybe we just avoid it. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, that's what we have for the tournament history bucket. 3 golfers. Looking at our recent form buckets though, I mean this is gonna round it out. Actually, we're gonna be looking at strokes gained buckets right after this, but recent form bucket 1 golfers, 40 to 60 range. That is the last 8 weeks. Their average finishing positions between 40 and 60. Your number 2 bucket are those that have a 1 to 20 recent form average. And your number 3 bucket, 20 to 40. And we're probably just going to talk about these 3 as none of these look that good, and nor do their projected amount of golfers to finish inside the top 10. So we can basically avoid all of these guys. And primarily because most of our did not plays down here are going to be those 20 PGA golf pros. The ones that qualified through the PGA of America. We can go ahead and just avoid that group. Although there is some success, I'm just going to say don't worry about it. And we see at least 3 every single year inside this recent form bucket 1. On average, we see 43.13 this year we see 34. We actually see 1 less for our recent form bucket 3s, but we do see 4 more for our recent form bucket 2s. So these 3 buckets, I think, still are going to see a lot of success. And really that bucket 2 has the highest success rate with the highest projected amount to finish inside the top 10. Let's go ahead and take a look at these. We'll open this back up. Look at our recent form bucket 1 golfers first. Rory McIlroy right up at the top, followed by DJ, Tony Finau, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sung J M, Tommy Fleetwood. That rounds out the 8K and above. But yeah, we have a pretty good bevy of golfers. Now again, I'm probably avoiding most of these guys below 6,500, but 65 and up, decent plays. Like I still like Peters. I'm a sucker for Peters. I also like Taylor Gooch. I like Sebastian Munoz, Cameron Davis as well. These to me all really good high 6K golfers. And then the guys in the 7K range. I mean, Russell Henley is also. I also have a soft spot for Russell Henley. Paul Casey usually shows up really well at these PGA championships, and just major championships in general. I don't know if I'm going to get there with Paul Casey, but still, if you needed a reason to play him, maybe this is it. But yeah, we see Rory and DJ again. I think Rory and DJ are golfers we should anchor our lineups around. They've shown up now in 3 buckets that we do want to choose from. And we've gone over 4 buckets. Actually, they've shown up in 5 buckets, or 4 buckets, I should say. Jeez, I'm all over the place. They've shown up in at least 4, right? Salary. Last year, they've shown up in all buckets that we've talked about. So, all the good ones too. So not a bad decision to go with either Rory or DJ. They're probably going to be on my thumbnail for the strategy video, most likely. Our next bucket, recent form bucket 2. This is your good bucket. This is the one we're projecting 4 golfers from. So there's Spieth, there's JT, Schauffele, Hovland, Simpson, Cam Smith, Louis, Abram Ancer. A lot of good golfers. Yeah. 26.83% success rate, projected 4.29. So how do we find 4 golfers? I mean, and again, it could be these 2 golfers. They could finish inside the top 10. and that would, you know, obviously add to it. And it could just be those 4 golfers right there. We can't roster all of them, so we have to decide which ones that we want to play and which ones we don't want to play. But I have a feeling we're going to see, you know, someone down here. Maybe not, don't include Webb, but any of these 11 golfers, I think we're going to see inside the top 10. So I think we can fill out some of our lineups here with these guys. No problem. And I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys to choose which one is your favorite. But remember, we could have these 4 golfers and it would fit our projections. It would fit that bucket. I mean, we'd still see that same success rate week or year in and year out for this tournament if, you know, these 4 do show up inside the top 10. So just throwing that out there. And then our last bucket, recent form bucket 3, Rahm, DeChambeau, Morikawa, Matsuyama. What do we see here? We see 28 golfers in this field. We are projecting 2. So, you know, again, it could be Rahm, it could be DeChambeau. The rest of the guys could be, you know, dead. Don't want to play them because they're not going to fit inside the optimal lineup, and you won't win a GPP with them, most likely. But maybe it's not these 2 guys. Maybe it's a Sam Burns. Maybe it's a Scotty Scheffler. We talked about those guys already. Will Zalatoris, same thing. Jeez, a lot of good golfers in this bucket. So those were our main buckets, but we do have one more, and that's our strokes gain. Now, obviously, if you've been with me before, you know I'm not a huge proponent of saying, hey, you need to find the best ball strikers, or you need to find the best bombers, the best off the tee guys. It just doesn't work that way. We are going to see a mix of positive off the tee with negative putting, combined with negative off the tee with positive putting. Also, positive off the tee plus positive putting and negative off the tee, negative putting. And you can see how I've ranked those. And I basically covered all of them. I understand. But you can see when all stats are positive, all your main 4, that's again off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. Those 4 strokes gain stats, those are the major 4. I use all 4 of those. And when they're all positive, they fall under the strokes gain bucket 1. Strokes gain bucket 2 means everything's positive except for either approach or around the green. One of the 2 stats there is a negative. So not all of them are positive. 3, positive off the tee plus negative putting. 4, positive or negative off the tee, positive putting. And you can kind of see the little pluses and minuses here. O's are off the tee, P is putting, that kind of thing. 5, negative off the tee, negative putting. And then 6, no strokes gain. Shoot. I forgot to update this to show you how many are in the field this year. That's a bummer. Well, it's a little oversight. We don't need that. It would be nice to have. You can see what the averages are per year, and we can actually go through these buckets, and I'll give you the totals anyways. But we can see actually the highest success rate are strokes gain bucket 3 guys. And again, that's positive off the tee, negative putting. We see at least 3 every single year at a PGA championship. Our totals aren't that high. We're only looking at last 2 years. I believe. I'm not going to quote that. I don't think that's I don't think that's correct. We should see, oh, wait. Top 10, 18. Here's where it all lies. This is where the engine comes from. Yeah, I don't think, actually, no, this would be right. I have everything correct in here. I think this just isn't showing up, my guess. So why don't we do this? 2018 DK page. Let's go ahead and hide this. Actually, no. We'll hide this. So we can see here at the top why I do this. Most of us, or most of our top 10 that we can see here, has positive off the tee. And then you can see all the negative putters. There's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negative putters. We see 1 that's a positive all the way across. We see a strokes gained bucket 2 guy. So 1 strokes gained bucket 2, 1 strokes gained bucket 3. Most of them, oh no, I'm sorry. 1 strokes gained bucket 1, 1 strokes gained bucket 2. Most of them were strokes gained bucket 3s. Going to 2019, when we look at this, let's hide some of this information. A little overkill here. Looking at again at our top 10 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 positive off the tee guys. With that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positive putting guys. Holy moly. This would be a strokes gained 1. This would be a strokes gained 1. As would this. As would this. And as would that. Wow. Okay. So I should have updated this. I will do this for the strategy video. We'll revisit this tomorrow. So let's not talk about it right now. I will make sure I have this updated for tomorrow. Have all the correct numbers in here. Bummer I didn't have it for you guys. But yeah, I think that's going to conclude the preview. We are over an hour, so it's pretty hearty. I don't have, yeah, we're going to leave it there. But here's what I want to do. I didn't want to do this in the beginning of the video because I don't want new viewers that come in here that don't listen to me, hear me apologize, basically. So what I'm going to apologize for is a couple things. 1, not having a website up and running when I said I wanted to, or when I was hoping to have it done. Obviously, I know life happens and we can't get to things that we promise, but that was more of an overpromise. So what I had said was in the review video, I'm going to try getting that website out, like up and running by the US Open. I think that's a more reasonable goal, is to get for the US Open. And that's where I'll hold, the optimizer and stuff like that. So you could use that. You can also read articles. You can grab all the information I talk about in my videos on that website. So I apologize for not having that ready. The optimizer that I usually give away in these major championships, I'm not going to have available either. There is still the slight chance I might be able to get it on a Wednesday, but unfortunately, there are too many things I don't like about it to feel comfortable. Actually, I'll put it this way. If you want to use it, I have no problem with providing it. So all you have to do is just basically provide a comment in the section here so I know who you are, like the video, and email me at SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com saying you're looking for the optimizer, you want to use the optimizer. I'll send it to you. I have no problem, but I'm going to give you that warning that it's not performing the way I want it. Now, if you got it during the Masters the Masters tournament, it's the same optimizer. So the one that I gave you then will be the one I'm giving you now. I just found out there are some bugs with it. So if you liked it then and you don't mind it, then obviously you can use it now. Like, I have no problem providing it for you guys. So you, again, just got to like it, like this video, any kind of comment in the comment section. I don't care. You can give me a 1-word whatever, and then reach out to me with email. On Twitter, all you have to do is share it, and I'll reach out to you. Like the video or like the tweet that I'm going to provide and share it, and then I'll reach out to you. Third thing I want to apologize for is the quiet voice. It's late. It's extremely late, and I guess that's the fourth thing I need to apologize for getting this out so late. This weekend had plans, was not able to work on the PGA Championship stuff, obviously put me behind, and could not, I had to start from scratch. Well, not so much from scratch. what I ended up having to do was that whole summary that we obviously just went over, the PGA Championship buckets. I have a template that I provide for each tournament to put all of this data together. That template was so much different for the PGA Championship. So that took a while to get done. And for it being late, I'm also trying to be quiet so I'm not waking my girlfriend up. That's why you hear the quiet voice and not the energetic voice that I try to usually give you. So that's the other thing I apologize for. But that's going to be it for me with apologies. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. So tomorrow's video is going to be better. I'll have it out earlier. We'll go through some good stuff. Just wait for that one to come out. It should be around like 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. But yeah, look for it there. That's it. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in that strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye.